Hey yogi friends, so glad that you are here to practice with me today. And we're going to do a practice that I like to call balancing act. There are so many different poses in yoga that help us develop our balance, but we're going to really focus on some poses that not only bring balance and help us strengthen our center, our core muscles from the spine all the way through to the front in the abdominal area, but also are helping us to remember that we can maintain our balance in our lives off the mat, through developing some of these skills and noticing how much control we have over our own bodies and how we can change things up a little bit so that it's balancing for us and that it's strengthening to us, and how we can work with poses to either modify them slightly or make some adjustments, and make them just more balancing and strengthening for us. Bringing attention to that on the mat can help us to bring a little bit more balance to our lives off the mat. That's what I'm getting at. So want to come into your comfy seat today. Some of these poses may be a little bit challenging. I'll offer some modifications, some adjustments that you can make. And obviously, at any point, if you're just like, this one's not going to work for me today, then you come to your favorite pose that you know works well for your body and makes you feel good. That's what we want. We want an experience here that is bringing us peace and tranquility and helping us to be our best selves. So all that being said, let's come into your comfortable position. I would recommend that if you have some blocks or some nice fat books, if you don't already have those at your side, I would grab those. It never hurts to have a strap, just in case that would help you into or out of a pose. I always have a little towel wrapped up behind my tailbone. That can really help to give just a slight amount of lift to the tailbone and really allow the pelvis to come into a nice neutral position. It also really helps me to keep the spine really erect. And we always want to work toward that lengthening up from the base of the spine and the pelvis all the way up through the crown. So if you need a second to grab those items, do so. Otherwise, when you are all set and ready, if you need to pause, go ahead and do that. Grab all your equipment. And when you're ready, come into this comfortable seated position. Right away, notice the spine drawing up from the very bottom of the spine, the tailbone, all the way up out of the pelvis even. Imagine the spine lengthening up out of the pelvis, up through the midsection. We don't want to raise the shoulders though. Just think of lengthening up all the way up through the neck, through the back of the neck, and up through the crown. Almost as if a little marionette string were pulling you up so that you can sit tall. This is so good for our spine. It allows the prana, that life energy, to really flow. And it's also just really good for our overall health to have a tall spine, allowing for us to have good posture, which affects all the muscle groups. I won't get into all the anatomy, but you understand it's important. It really helps overall. And once you've come into the easy seat, really paid attention to your spine, allow yourself to have an erect spine, but also to relax into this position. And that may take a little bit of effort to combine those two. You can place the hands wherever is comfortable on the thighs or the knees. If you want to be in a more protected position, go ahead and put the palms facing down on the legs. If you want to be in a more receiving and open position, open the palms to the sky. And once you've gotten physically all set, let's close the eyes and maintain that chin in a position that's parallel to the floor. And take a notice of the parts of the body that are grounded on the mat beneath you. Where in your feet, ankles, legs, bottom, where in those parts of the body Are you grounded on the mat? Can you feel your body really rooted onto that surface beneath you? Just take a notice of those points. You may also bring some attention to any sensations in your body, any little spots of tenderness, any little places that might feel really relaxed, or maybe there's some tension, some numbness, some tingling. We're just drawing attention and noticing these things first of all. Notice how it feels to come here to practice today. Just notice the state of mind, the state of the emotions. Notice the state of our bodies. And let's begin to draw attention to the breath, the depth of the breath, the pacing of the breath. Just noticing. Maybe we can even feel the heartbeat. Let's take a big full belly breath here, really opening up the abdomen, like filling like a balloon. You may even put the hands on the lower abdomen as the diaphragm draws the air into the lungs, filling up the lungs all the way up through the collarbone, and maybe it even raises just slightly. And on the exhale, allow the relaxation to happen. And really draw that belly button toward the spine to press the exhale fully out of the lungs. Let's do that twice more together. Fill up that belly like a balloon. All the way up through the collarbone. Let that air come in, that life-giving oxygen, and then lower the collarbone. Squeeze the belly in as we press the exhale out fully. One more time. Let's take another full belly breath, and on the exhale, we're going to chant Om together, waking up the energy inside the body. And that Om that we chant is just a recognition of the life force that connects all living beings throughout creation to one another. One more full breath cycle here with the eyes closed. And then we'll gently, slowly open the eyes. We're going to begin with a little bit of warming up before we get the muscles into these balancing positions. So let's start by dropping the chin to the chest and just let it rest there for a moment. Notice where you feel this movement in the back of the neck, the upper shoulders, upper back. Be careful about the neck. Really listen to your body. The neck is such a delicate area, so many bones and muscles there. Many of us hold tension in the neck and shoulders, so really listen to what works for your body today. Let's raise the nose up through center and then toward the ceiling or the sky, depending upon where you're practicing. Really filling the air, or filling the lungs with air again, over and over through our breath cycles. Holding here just a moment. Think of opening through the throat without crunching the neck. So we're still having some length through the crown and just opening up the front of the throat. Relaxing the shoulders down. Let's bring the nose back down to the chin and the nose back down toward the chest. From here, let's gently move one ear to one shoulder and just hold there for a second. Notice how that feels in the neck. Again, paying attention. If you want to have a little bit of extra lengthening out here on this side of the neck, lengthen the fingers out on the opposite side of the body from where the neck is or the head is tilting. And if you lengthen them out just slightly, you may also just very gently, very slightly rock the head front to back. And then we'll raise the head back up to neutral in the center and drop the opposite ear to the opposite shoulder. And now really notice how different this feels on one side of the body versus the other. A really different feeling possibly. Again, if you want to add a little more stretch, lengthen those fingertips out to the opposite side of the tilt of your head. And again, if you want to do a slight little rock, just a very small movement from front to back. You can feel that little bit of extra movement because you are incorporating just a few more muscles there. Now from here, let's drop the chin back down to the chest. Roll the other ear to the opposites. We're going to do some half circles here. Just rolling from one side to the other. One ear toward one shoulder, back down through center, other ear to other shoulder. Just a half circle here. One more to this side, one more to the other side, and then we're going to raise back up to neutral in the center. Let's extend the arms out on either side of the shoulders and then turn the palms to face up, bringing the fingertips to touch the shoulders, dropping the elbows down toward the ribs. We're going to do some shoulder circles. Shoulder circles, a little bit of a tongue twister for me sometimes. So just circling the shoulders, really pay attention to if you have the tendency to raise the shoulders up as you raise the elbows up. And what we want to go for here is leaving the shoulders in the neutral position as we raise the elbows up. Depending upon your mobility, these circles might be mostly out here on the side. The elbows might just be circling out here on the side of the body. If you have a little more mobility, you may be able to bring elbows closer to one another and really open them wide. Everybody is different, so you do what works for you today. And again, just try to let those shoulders stay down. The reason we're focusing on that is because by raising them up, we're creating some tension there. And we certainly don't want to create more tension. When the elbows are down at the ribs again, we're going to reverse that circle. So if you were going forward, you'll go back. If you were going back, you'll go forward. You can also think of, as you raise the elbows up, breathing in, inhaling, and as you drop the elbows down, exhaling. That's really marrying our breath to our movement. But don't get hung up on that. Just remember to breathe and to allow this movement to just open up the shoulders. All right. Nice. Let's drop the arms down to either side. Let's do one stretch to one side here, lengthening up through the arm first. Again, allowing the shoulder to have some space between it and the ear. Up through the fingertips and then over to the side. Pressing the opposite hip down. It's the same hip. These fingers that are extended overhead, the hip on the same side of the body, we're going to press it into the mat. So that's creating more length in this side body. Holding here for a moment. You might even look up toward the sky. You might try on an inhale to lengthen up a little taller, and then on an exhale, go just a tiny bit more to the side. Again, listen to your body. We want to go to the edge, but we don't want to pass the edge of what works for us today. Let's come back to center. We're going to have that same stretch happening on the opposite side. Hip that is on the same side as the extended fingers presses into our mat. Inhale and lengthen up through those fingertips, allowing the shoulder and ear to have space between. And then leaning maybe just slightly over a little more. Maybe we glance up at the sky. And then we'll come back to center. lowering that arm back down. Let's do a little quick transition to standing. First of all, we'll come into our tabletop position, really fingers spread nice and wide, elbows, shoulders, wrists, all in a nice straight line, gripping into the mat with your fingers so that your hands are like spiders on the mat. Knees directly under the hips, toes directly behind the knees. Let's drop the belly here, open the front body, raise the crown and the tail into our cow position, maybe just rocking slightly back and forward on the hands and knees. Doing a cat pose now, drawing the navel up toward the spine as you curve the spine up toward the ceiling, really pressing into the knees, into the tops of the feet, and into the base of the palms, right under the wrists. Let's inhale, drop the belly, raising crown and tail. And then let's press into those hands, knees, tops of the feet, and draw the navel up to the spine as we come to our cat. Come back to neutral here. And we're going to do a little bit of balance work just right here in our cat-cow. I'm going to offer some options to you. One of them is to start by, really keeping those fingers gripped. Again, this helps so much to take weight and pressure and tension out of the wrists, so gripping. If you have really fussy wrists or they have some issues, make a fist with the hand and just place the weight between the top knuckle and the middle knuckle on the finger. And that really takes the wrist out of the equation even more so that we're not causing any pain in the wrist, or if you have carpal tunnel, any of those kinds of things. And you can keep the thumb actually outside of that fist so that it's just resting on the mat too. So either way, with the hands, whatever works best for your body. Again, we want a straight spine from crown to tail. I often tend to drop my head, so we want to extend the head forward. Let's take that right leg and just extend it out behind us so there's a straight line from the hip to the heel. Now, what tends to happen is that hip wants to raise up above the hip on the extended leg wants to raise up above the hip on the opposite side. So we want to keep the hips in alignment so that they are in the same plane. They are directly across from one another, parallel to the floor. Hopefully those descriptions help. This can be plenty of balance work. You do want to engage the navel. That's going to help with the core stability and also supporting the low back. And if this is challenging already, then when you tire a little bit, bring that knee back down, maybe even do a little wrist circle there. And then you can do the other leg. If you want to take this up a notch and add a little more, extend that leg, that right leg, and then extend the left arm out in front. So we're only on the left knee. You can probably hear my breathing become a little more intense. We have our weight on our right hand with our spider grip, and we have the weight on the left knee, shin, top of the foot. And draw that navel in again, a good reminder, extend through the crown. This is challenging for me. If you want to add more to this, if you do, you can bring that knee that's bent and the extended elbow in towards center. That can be pretty challenging, but it is possible. And then bring that knee and that hand back down. Let's extend, or open rather, the knees as wide as the mat and bring the big toes to touch. And just come into an extended child's pose, bringing the hips back toward the heels. If they don't reach, that's fine. If you want to bring the head all the way to the mat, you can. If you have a block and you want to put a block or two underneath the forehead so that the forehead can rest on a surface, that's fine. You can extend those fingertips, walk them out a little further in front to stretch the side body a little more. You can even rock the forehead from side to side if that feels nice. Let's take 2 full breath cycles here. And then let's come back up to our tabletop. And we're going to do this on the opposite side. So again, you can extend the left leg out behind. This might be just fine. Working on balance here. Notice the fingertips. Are they gripping? Do you have your spider hands working here? Or are you on the fists, if that's what you need for your wrists? Notice if the hips are level, parallel to the floor. We want to keep them there. And if keeping them there, if keeping this one leg extended allows you to keep the hips level, then stay right here. Because the tendency is when we challenge ourselves, then we get out of alignment. So let's stay in alignment. That's extremely important. If you want to add a little more intensity, then extend the right arm out in front of the right shoulder. Draw that navel up to support the low back and engage the front body. And then here, if you want to add a little more, you can bring that right elbow and that left knee into the center of the body to meet one another if they will come toward each other. Or even just a slight movement is a challenge of your balance if they don't come all the way together. And then let's lower that knee and that hand back down again. Widen the knees as wide as the mat. We'll come into that extended child's pose once again. Really breathing deeply here. Allowing the body a little rest after we've done some muscular work there to balance us. Let's come back up into our tabletop. You may want to move the palms one palm's length forward. We're going to come up into a down dog, so curl the toes under behind you. Lift the hips up. Think of lifting them toward the crease between the wall and the ceiling behind you. Keep your spider hands active. Lengthen through the crown of the head toward the front of the mat. And attempt to have the ears and the biceps beside one another. We don't want to drop the head too far. That can cause some difficulties with the neck and shoulders. But a nice alignment is with ears on either side of the biceps, or biceps rather on either side of the ears. Pedaling the feet, you might notice, is a nice way to add some length and some nice stretch to the back of the calf and the Achilles. I like to pedal my feet in this down dog position so much. Let's also think of having length between shoulders and ears. Bring the toes just slightly closer, the big toes slightly closer to one another, and the heels slightly open. This gives a nice rotation to the hips. And imagine a straight rod from the crown of your tail down through the spine, excuse me, the crown of your head, down the spine to the tailbone. I misspoke there, and it just took a minute for me to catch up and realize what I had said. Hold here in stillness for a minute and remember to breathe. And today, let's walk the hands back to meet the feet. A little bit different than what we sometimes do to come into our forward fold, bending those knees just as generously as feels good to you today. Maybe shaking the head a little yes and no. And if you're not in a position to come all the way into this forward fold, you may want to come with hands on the thighs and just extend the crown forward. This is more of a figure 7. Draw the navel up to the spine if you're here. Lengthen through the crown and tail. Or you might be in the position of bringing the hands to rest on the shins. Again, lengthening through the spine. Maybe the hands are on tops of the feet. Maybe they come to the floor. You do what works best for you today. You know my philosophy about coming to your edge. A little discomfort is a-okay. When you feel that discomfort cross into pain, that's your body saying, no, not today. We're going to do something different. This won't work for me today. So listen to that message from your body and honor it. Let's roll up into a tall mountain and close the eyes for a moment here in mountain. Take a look, not a look, but a notice, a mental note of the feet. Does it feel like the weight of the body is equally distributed? If not, just move the feet around a little bit so that it can be equally distributed. Crown is lengthened up, the whole spine is extended from the tail to the crown. We have space between the shoulders and the ears. The shoulders are relaxed. The chin is parallel to the floor. The thighs are engaged so that the kneecaps raise just slightly. All right. From this mountain pose, let's come to the long edge of our mat. Bring the feet right under the hips. We're going to do some hip circles. Just opening those hips up a little bit more. Let's reverse those circles. I seem to have found a creaky spot on the floor. There we go. All right, from here, you may want to come to a wall, or if you have a chair nearby, you could use the chair, depending upon where the balance is for you today. If you are able to do this, we're going to be swinging the leg from the hip forward and back. Sometimes coming to that wall can really make a big difference in how balanced you feel. You want to really press into the foot of the standing leg and lift up through the spine, lifting all the way up from that heel, all the way up through the side body, through the spine, up through the crown as you swing. Also can help with the balance to extend the arms out on either side. So do what works for you today. And the next time the leg is forward, let's kick from the knee. Next time that the foot is forward, let's make some ankle circles one direction and then the opposite direction. And then we'll lower that leg. Same thing on the other side. If you need the wall or a chair, go to that spot. Do your leg swings there. If you want to try without the wall, then do that. Put the arms wherever it works best for you. And the next time the foot is forward, let's just kick from the knee a few times. And then we'll extend that leg out in front and do our ankle circles there. Might get a little wobbly here. This is another little balancing act, of course. All right, let's bring that leg down. And from here, let's come into a tree pose. There are some options on a tree pose. So come into your mountain first of all. Decide which leg you want to have as your standing leg and really press into that foot, press into the floor, and then come up onto the big toe of the opposite foot. And from here, you may want to stay in this position, and then you can bring arms up to prayer above the head, prayer at the chest, extend it out from the shoulders in a diagonal. This is a starting point. Find a point in front of your face, maybe about 12 inches above your line of sight, because that also lifts you up a bit. And then if you'd like to bring the sole of that foot either inside the ankle, that challenges the balance a little more. Let's stop right there first though. Draw the navel in and lengthen up. Having that navel drawn in really helps with the balance. You could bring that foot to the inside of the calf, or you could possibly bring the foot all the way up right inside the thigh with the heel just inside the groin. And if you are pressing the weight into that standing leg, there's almost a lock between this sole of this foot and the thigh. And then you can decide where you would like to bring your hands today. Prayer above the head, prayer at the heart space, maybe extending arms out to the side. This is a wonderful metaphor for life. If this gets wobbly and you come out of the pose, you get off balance, you decide how to come back into balance. just like our daily lives can get out of whack, a little out of balance. And it is our job to bring things back, come back to our center, use our strengths to create balance, to find our peace within. That is what our goal is. Doing it on the mat can obviously help us do it off the mat, because we're working the mental and the physical muscles here together. Let's come out of this pose. If you have the foot up high, gently release it. Give the legs a little shake. That's some intense work there. And then let's ground that opposite leg, really pressing into the heel, lengthening up through the side body, through the spine, through the crown. And so coming on to that opposite toe, again, grounding into that heel, finding your drishti or your stationary point out in front, lifting up through that toe. We could bring that sole of that foot to the inside of the ankle, turning the knee out. We could bring it to the calf, inside of the calf, or we could bring it all the way up inside the upper thigh with the heel resting just below the groin or just inside that thigh. Again, now notice how it's really different on one side of the body than the other. Oftentimes you'll find a stretch, a balance pose, whatever we're doing, it's so different on one side of the body than the other. It's just a testament to how asymmetrical we tend to be. Bringing the arms wherever you want them to be to aid your balance and support your balance here. And again, if you come out of the pose, no worries. Just find your way back in gently. Be gentle with yourself. Listening again to the body. And if you're in the position, just holding here and breathing. Gazing at that stationary point in front. Drawing the navel in slightly to support you. And then we'll gently allow the foot to come back down to the floor wherever it was and give the legs a little shake. And then let's come to the short edge of the mat, but to face the short edge of the mat, but be about halfway back, right in the middle of the mat from back to front. We're going to raise one knee. And again, let's try to keep the hips facing forward and not let one, pop out to the side. Often when we do this, the tendency is for one hip, you'll notice one hip is higher than the other. It also doesn't help that my shirt is emphasizing that. But we want to keep them both, these hip bones, at the same level. We don't want one to be higher than the other when we make this move. So if it means that you only come up onto the big toe in order to lengthen through the spine and keep them even, so be it. If you're able to lift this knee up to the waist height, fantastic. Somewhere in between, also great. Listen to what works for your body today. Lift that knee to where it works for you. Up higher, down lower, with toe on the floor, keeping hips level. If you are here in front with the knee all the way up, we're going to, or wherever the knee and toe are, we're going to now lengthen that leg back behind us, tipping the torso forward. You can put the hands on either side of the hips here because, again, we want to keep them level with the floor. This can be quite challenging just right here where you are. Use the navel drawing in toward the spine to help you balance. If this is too much for that back leg or hip, or the balance is really feeling iffy, then put the big toe down and back, or put all the toes down, curl the toes slightly. You can also put a little bend in the knee here. This is still working on strengthening the inner section of the torso because we're tilted. So you're still working on the balance here. If you want to come all the way up into that warrior three, you would extend that heel back behind and extend the arms out in front. So this is a real challenge, especially if you're working to keep those hips level, parallel with the floor. Holding here, a slight little bend in the knee that's of that standing leg can really help here too. And if you get to a point where you're like, yep, need to bring that foot down in the back and lower the arms, go right ahead and do that. This can feel pretty intense on that standing leg. If the foot is not already down, bring it down, and we're just going to bend that front knee, press that back heel toward the mat, just giving a little rest there. Now let's step that back foot up to meet the front foot. We'll do the same thing here. We're going to extend the toes back, lean the torso forward. So right now we have a diagonal line from the heel to the crown. We can start to lift that heel up, deciding where you need to stop. If you can come all the way into a line from crown to heel that's parallel with the floor, that's great. Maybe put the hands on the hips, making sure they're parallel to the floor. And then if you like, extending the arms out in front of the shoulders into your warrior three. And this, again, can be pretty intense. Drawing that navel in to help, and lengthening through the crown and through the heel behind us, pressing into that standing leg and lowering the toe back down whenever is needed, bringing that heel to the mat as well, bending the front leg, just allowing yourself to rest a little bit after that intense balancing position. Notice the breath. We're really working the muscles. You may feel the breath start to pick up the pace. And then let's have a little bend in that back knee to come back up to standing in the center. Let's do one more balancing position here. Bringing one foot forward between the hands and lowering the back knee. Now you can stay here in this low lunge. You may want to bring your blocks into the picture to allow you to lengthen here. And then from here, this in itself, this is also balancing. If you want to add a little more, you can come up with hands on the knee. And then if you'd like to add a little bit more balance challenge, bring the hands to the heart space and twist the body so that the opposite elbow comes just above or just outside that bent knee. And if you want to even kick this up a notch, you can curl those back toes under and lift the back knee, straightening the back leg, pressing that heel back slightly. So not only are we getting a real balance challenge here, we're bringing in a twist, which is really good for the abdominal organs. Gives them a little massage. You can press into the palms toward one another here. Let's lower the back knee down, lower the top of the back foot, gently come back to center, placing those fingers on the blocks or on the mat. And then we're going to bring that front knee back to meet the back knee. We'll just bring the opposite foot forward between the blocks, if we're using blocks, or between the hands. First, we're going to settle in to this lunge a little bit. Notice where the knee is of the front leg. It should be right above the ankle. And then when you are ready, bringing those hands up to rest on the front knee. Hands on top of one another there. Again, relaxing into this low lunge position. Remembering to breathe here. And I'm feeling that I need to move that front foot back slightly, so I put my hands down first to give me a little extra support there. Anytime you need to readjust, do so. And then from here, if we want to add a little to this, bring those hands to heart space in prayer position. Twist the torso and bring the elbow opposite elbow outside that front knee. Take a notice of how this twist feels on this side of the body. If you feel you're able to come deeper, or even maybe not as deeply as on the other side, into the twist. And again, if you feel like you'd like to bring it up one more notch, you can come up on to those back toes, curling them under and lifting that back knee so you straighten that back leg. And you can probably feel a little wobble here. You may notice this is a really different, you may feel a lot of different balance challenge on this side. Maybe it's easier, maybe it's more difficult. Let's lower that back knee, bringing the hands back around to the front and lifting up through the crown into this wonderful low lunge. I'm going to take the hips back here. We'll do this on the other side in just a moment. I didn't think to do this. You may want to move the blocks back here. We're going to just do a runner's stretch. So bring the hips back, moving your blocks to wherever you need them. As you bring the hips back, roll the front foot onto the heel and really lengthen through the back of that extended leg. Drawing the toes toward the face, lengthening through the crown, straightening through the back. I use the blocks here because it really helps me straighten more through the spine. And bring that back hip in line with the back knee, so they're in a parallel line with each other. And then we'll roll forward onto that front foot. Bring the blocks back up to the front, and let's do that same runner stretch on the other side. So we'll bring the two knees together, take the leg we extended out first time, and then we'll just automatically roll back onto that heel, again bringing the blocks into play wherever you want here, on the whichever setting works best for you. Rolling onto that front heel, bringing the weight of the hips back, drawing the toes toward the face, noticing the back hip, keeping it in line with the back knee, and really breathing into the space where you feel this stretch. And then rolling forward onto that front foot, maybe putting the blocks off to either side of the mat, bringing that foot back. Let's sit back on the heels and rock over onto one hip, bringing the legs to extend out in front of us. Long legs, bringing the hands to clasp in front, maybe with a steeple grip, rolling down slowly, slowly, slowly here, all the way onto the back. And lengthening those arms up above the shoulders. Really doing a full body stretch from the heels, pressing out through the heels, and pressing out all the way up through the base of the palms. Big belly breaths here. And then bringing the hands down on either side of the body, resting the hands there. Because we've done a lot of hip and thigh work, we're going to bring both knees to bend so that the soles of the feet can rest about 12 inches in front of the bottom. And bend one knee into the chest, give it a little squeeze. And then take that heel, the outside edge, bony part of that heel, and we're going to just let it rest right above the opposite kneecap, so that allows the knee to open out to the side. And this is a figure 4. And to bring some stretch into the thigh and the hip of this leg where the knee is bent out to the side, we're going to wrap the hands behind the thigh, just clasping the fingers there, pulling that thigh toward the body, toward the chest, and using the elbow that's closest to that knee that's bent out to the side, and even just pressing slightly on that thigh with the elbow. And if you'd like to add a little more stretch to that big glute muscle area, you can tilt toward the side where the elbow is closest to the floor and just tilt over there. And that's going to bring a little more stretch. You can even come to rest on that elbow. If it doesn't quite go that far and you want to try to get more of this stretch, you can put a rolled blanket, folded blanket beneath that elbow on the floor. Think of lengthening through the tailbone here too. That can intensify this stretch in that outer hip of the leg that's bent to the side of the body. Really breathing here. And let's come back onto the back, releasing both soles of the feet down to the mat once again. And then we're going to do figure four on the opposite side. So drawing that heel up right above the kneecap, clasping hands behind the thigh, drawing that thigh toward the chest, pressing that knee that's out to the side with this elbow that's close to it. And flexing both of the feet can also add a little extra stretch here. And then we'll lean over toward that elbow, toward the floor, where the elbow's closest to the floor. And allow our elbow to meet the floor if possible. If we need that blanket to make that happen, then grab a blanket and allow that elbow to rest on the blanket. Again, think of lengthening through the tailbone here, flexing those feet, and really breathing into the intense places, drawing the inhale to the areas where it feels maybe intense, scooping up that tension and drawing it back out of the body with the exhale. Just imagine the breath doing that, drawing the tension away. Let's roll back over onto the back, extend both legs out, coming into our full Shavasana here, allowing the arms to rest at the sides, palms facing the ceiling. And closing the eyes, allowing the body to completely release all efforts. Just scanning the body for any little areas that might need us to consciously relax. I find especially the face, the little muscles around the eyes, the jaw, even the neck and shoulders might need a little extra attention, maybe even opening the jaw slightly. Noticing that space between the eyebrows and letting it open and relax. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to just be here and breathe, letting any thoughts that may come to mind pass through without judgment or attachment. And I'll let you know when it's time to come back to full awareness. For now, just be and just breathe. let's start to bring some movement to the fingertips and the toes, rocking the heels from side to side, maybe doing some twisting of the wrists from side to side, even lengthening into another full body stretch, rocking the hips from side to side. And then rolling over to one side of the body, using the arm to pillow the head. Keeping the eyes closed here. Take a full breath cycle. Using the hands, let's press us up into our seated position. If you use a little cushion or rolled towel behind the tailbone to come into your easy seat, you want to grab that and then come into your seat with eyes closed still. And take a notice of the points in the body that are resting on the mat here again. Notice any bodily sensations. Noticing the length of the spine. Noticing where you're grounded. Noticing how the body feels different sitting in this position now versus when we came to the mat. If there's any difference, just notice. And notice the state of mind now versus when you first came to practice. It's settled into this easy seat to begin. Let's draw attention to the breath, the breathing pattern. Is there any difference that you notice here between the breath, the depth of the breath and pacing of the breath versus when you first came to practice? Just noticing. And how's the state of mind now versus when we first came here together on the mat? Let's draw the hands to a prayer position at the heart space, keeping the eyes closed still. Take a big full belly breath, and on the exhale, we'll close with Om together. Maybe you notice that your Om is even slightly different than the one at the opening of practice. Let's bring those thumbs in prayer position up to touch the forehead. May we have peace in our thoughts. And then bring the thumbs to rest on the lips. May we have peace in our words. Finally settling the thumbs right at the heart space. May we have peace in our hearts. The light in me recognizes and honors the light in you. And I bow as I say Namaste. Thank you so very much for being here to practice with me today. I do hope that this practice has brought some peace and tranquility into your day, and that you're able to carry that peace and tranquility with you and into whatever space you enter for the rest of your day. Thanks again for being here. If you'd like to follow and get more notice when there are new practices available, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you can also follow on Instagram at Find Bliss Yoga, and you'll get notifications of news and tidbits about yoga and whole health, whole being health. Namaste. Can't wait to practice with you again soon.